Hey, welcome back to the Too Fast channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to replace the bulbs in your fog lights on your Volkswagen EOS. Now, this may or may not be applicable to facelift versions, but my EOS is a 2008, so it's a pre-facelift version, and it will be applicable to pre-facelift version EOSs for sure. What you're going to need to do this, obviously, is your bulbs. I'll talk about that in a little bit because I'm going to replace the halogen bulbs with some LED bulbs, and I'll show you those. You're also going to need a T20 Torx. Flashlight will be helpful. And this tool right here. This is in your toolkit. This is the little puller for the plastic cap to cover your lug nuts. This is also the recommended tool to use to remove this cover. Now let's see if I can feel it here. It's right here somewhere. There's a hole right here. So if you get down and you look, by the way, this is the driver's side or the left side of the car that I'm working on here. There's a little hole right there. And what you would do with this hook, now keep in mind I've already took this off, but what you would do is you would place this hook inside of the hole, and it's best to grab here and have the tool, and you're going to pull towards the license plate. In other words, pull towards the grill. We're pulling this way. You're going to pull it, and you're going to have to pull it hard, and when you pull it hard, it will pop out. And you can see that there's a tab right here. That's why you have to pull it in this direction. And then there's tabs here and here. And let's see, let's get that in frame, here and here. So these tabs you more or less can pull outwards, but you've got to pull it this way to slide this section out. So hopefully that makes sense. I did have to put a little bit of muscle into it, and I did use both hands. I had my other hand over here, and I had the puller tool, and I was pulling like this, and it popped out. So that's more or less how you remove this panel. And the next thing you're going to need, a flashlight is helpful because there are 3 T20 Torx. There's one right down here at the bottom. I use a multi-bit driver with a Torx bit on it because it's magnetic and it holds on to the screws. Nothing worse than dropping a screw when you're trying to take something off and it disappearing. Not that I've ever done that before. I have actually. The other screw is right here. So you got 3 of them. My apologies if my hands are in the way of the camera. I need both my hands to do this, which is typical whenever I'm working on a car. It's tough to make videos. If I had my own dedicated video cameraman, it would be much easier, but I don't. Alright, so with those 3 Torx screws removed, the fog light will just come out, and there is your fog light assembly, and the plug, you just squeeze and remove the plug, and there's your fog light. So at this point in time you can inspect it for any damage, clean it up. The bulb itself, this is a 9006 bulb. It just twists to remove it, and there's the bulb. One thing you want to make note of is never touch the glass of the bulb with your fingers. You don't want to get any oils from your hands on the bulbs. That can cause premature bulb failure. So that's the removal of the fog light and the bulb. The installation would be the reverse. I'll actually show that because I'm going to install a new bulb here. But what we'll do next is let's take a look at the bulbs I'm going to replace these with. Okay, we transitioned over to my display area. And I'll show you these LED bulbs. Now, normally I prefer HIDs pretty much across the board because they're going to be superior to LEDs in most all situations, and you don't have the filament issues. A lot of the LEDs are large. They have large fans or large heat sinks coming off the back, and they may not fit into your headlights. But for fog lights, it's for me, the fog lights, these LEDs will probably work just fine. It's kind of comes down to your personal preference, and based on my researching, for my main low beams, I'm gonna rock HIDs all day long. LEDs are not quite there yet, but they are improving and they are getting better. And every time I turn around, there's better and better LEDs out there. So. These actually are made by a company called AutoOne. I got these off of Amazon. They run about 40 bucks. No particular reason. I wanted a 9006 LED that was similar in size to the stock LED, but I also wanted to make sure that, or similar in size to the stock halogen 9006, excuse me. But I wanted to make sure that these were going to be bright. And one of the things you have to look out for with LEDs is some LEDs, they'll specifically say not for low beams or not for high beams because they're not very bright. Those are designed for like fog lights and maybe driving lights. These particular ones can be used in your low beams. They're 10,000 lumens, or that's what they're rated at, is 10,000 lumen output. Specifics, they're 26 watt bulbs. They use a ZES chip. The color temperature is 6,000 Kelvin. IP ratings IP67. The base material is made out of 6063 aluminum. It does ship with a couple of extra O-rings, so if you need to swap out the O-ring to get a nice tight fit, you have that option. A little product manual and this little card, and then the bulbs. Of course, we're going to I'm not sure if actually touching the LEDs has the same effect as if you were to touch a halogen bulb. You know, the oil's off your hand damaging the halogen bulb, but I'm not going to touch the LEDs with my fingers just to play it on the safe side. So you can see that this closely replicates the size of a 906 halogen bulb, 9006. You can see that the LEDs are on either side, the same way the halogen bulb is set up. So the light output from the LED should replicate this 9006 halogen fairly well. And we're not looking at much of a size difference, you know, real close in size. So if you're dealing with a tight space, you shouldn't have any problems fitting these. These also have a little fan on the bottom of it. How useful they are, I don't know, but they do have a fan, and they are vented for cooling purposes. So that's yeah, that's basically all I can tell you. These are not adjustable from what I can see, but then again, you shouldn't need to adjust them because the way these LEDs are situated on each side, the light coming out of these LEDs is going to replicate the light coming out of a stock halogen bulb. So if you're putting these into a reflector assembly like I am, the light output should be pretty much on par with the halogen, except it's going to be much brighter and much whiter. All right, so let's get to the installation. Okay, we're ready to install these these LEDs into the EOS fog light. Now the 9006s, if you didn't see this in the earlier part of the video, there's 3 tabs on there, and there's a specific way that the fog light bulb goes into the fog light. So you can't really put these in incorrectly because they won't fit. The two big tabs have to go into the big notches, and then the little tab goes into the top notch. And once you get that in place, you need to push down and twist. And you may need to push down with a good amount of force because of that rubber O-ring. You want a nice tight water seal. But if it just isn't going, if it's not cooperating, switch to one of the other O-rings that comes with the LED bulb. So our next step, once that's snapped into place and it's secure, the bulb is the LED bulb is put on this socket with the tab facing up, the tab facing, that's what holds it in place. And make sure it snaps in like that. And then we're ready to bolt it in. I also suggest that when you're reinstalling these torque screws, don't tighten them down all the way. Get them in maybe 3/4 of the way, each one in 3/4 of the way, and then go back and tighten them down. And you don't need to reef on these bolts. They do appear to be threading straight into plastic, so snug them up, but don't put a lot of torque on them. You don't want to strip out anything. And of course I can't see anything the way I've got my angle. And that takes care of that. Of course, it would have helped if I had my flashlight right up there so I could see where all the holes are, but I got it back a little bit to help with the lighting for the camera. So at this point, I would recommend, before you snap this piece back on, because these can be kind of a hassle to remove, I'd recommend testing your fog light bulbs to make sure that they're working correctly. And I'm going to step over the camera and do a test. And both of my fog lights are working, so that's good. You'll also notice if you put your ear up close to the fog lights, you can hear a little bit of buzzing from the fan on the LED bulbs. You want to make sure that those are working, because that helped with the cooling of the LED bulbs. So I think we're good. I'll just double check make sure I got these nice and tight. Yep. Alright, so we can go and install our trim cover again. And since this tab right here kind of slots in, I want to put that tab in first, push that all the way in, and then kind of push it until all the tabs snap into place. This part of the trim, you'll know everything is good when this is fully flush against the bumper. And just make sure you push all these areas and get all those tabs snapped back in. Okay, so that about covers the installation of fog light bulbs into a pre-facelift Volkswagen EOS. This happens to be a model 2008. So I think this is a good update to the car. Getting rid of the halogen bulbs. If you've watched any of the other videos, I've been systematically going through and removing all of the halogen bulbs, the incandescent type of bulbs, and replacing them all with bright white LEDs. These 6000K LED fog light bulbs match the color output of the driving light bulbs. That would be these right here. So good color match at 6000K. The driving light bulbs in my car are also 6000K. Not the same manufacturer, but they are a 6000K bulb. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you found the information useful.